Sorry about that. So we've got, last year we were at just shy of 26,000 residents. And as of January 1st of this year, the estimated population is 27,270. So 25,000 is now a dim memory, and we'll be at 30,000 very soon. We haven't caught Lathrop, but we're well ahead of Ripon and Escalon, so we're the 6th largest community in San Joaquin County at this point in time. We have on our website a number of recruitments for staffing going on right now, and so you can just go to our website and take a look. Our finance department has been working very hard to make sure all those new properties get put on the tax roll. You'll get your tax bill in November. After we had, as you know, we're having this community meeting tonight. We had one on our master restrictions back in June. And before the end of the year, we expect to have one on trash collection, because the state, we talked about this a little bit about this time last year, the state has mandated significant changes to the way we separate our trash. And I won't go into detail on that this evening, but towards the end of the year, we'll be finishing up the new contract with our waste hauler, and we're mandated by the state to educate you on all the changes. But again, that's a world unto itself. I'm not going to go into detail on that tonight. We have to talk to somebody afterwards. Just a reminder that from May through September each year, we have one monthly concert in the park. We just had one on the 3rd weekend of August. Keep going, and we'll have another one in September 17th. Will be our last concert in the park of the year, which hopefully a couple of years from now can be done in our beautiful amphitheater that we'll be talking about later this evening. All right, next slide. Just as a reminder, the high school tennis courts we've got so much demand for tennis at our courts, which is why we're looking at a tennis court expansion project that right now we're also in the summer, 7 days a week, renting out the high school tennis courts. And in the off season, we rent the high school tennis courts on Saturday and Sunday. And you can go online and make a reservation if you'd like to use the high school courts. We continue to recruit for more neighborhood watch. We had at our last community meeting, we talked a bit about neighborhood watch, but if you're interested in neighborhood watch and putting neighborhood watch together, go to the district's Facebook page, our crime prevention Facebook page. I assume a lot of you go over to our library. I was telling some of our visitors this evening that other than the Stockton main branch, our branch is by far the busiest library in the entire San Joaquin County library system. It continues to be very well used and lots of activities over at the library. We only house the library. We do not operate the library. City of Stockton runs all the libraries in the county, and they do a great job with that. In fact, they've used this room for a number of live performances, including reptiles of one sort or another, correct? Again, we're talking mainly about Central Park this evening, but there's a lot going on north of Byron. Neighborhood J is our next neighborhood. It doesn't have a name yet, but it's all the dirt you've noticed moving around north of Byron. That's going to be 1,173 housing units. About 55% of those are going to be restricted to active adults, actually. So those will be 55 and over housing only. Then the balance of the units will be our typical family units. There'll be no school in that neighborhood, but there will be a school in neighborhood K. Go back real quick to the neighborhood directly north. That's the Old River School. They've already named it. And that neighborhood will also be partly active adult and partially families. And between the two neighborhoods, it's about 2,300 housing units. And so on to the next slide, and you can see they're moving very quickly. They'd actually started this neighborhood back before the world ended in real estate in 2008. And so a lot of the dry utilities are already in the ground, but they've still got a lot of work to do to bring everything up to modern codes. But I suspect about a year from now, you'll start seeing houses coming out of the ground. Yes, ma'am. It's about half and half in neighborhood J. And then it's about 1/4 active adults in neighborhood K, just some of the lake lots in neighborhood K, and that's it. And so you can see all these shots of neighborhood J grading. We also are going to have our one everybody thinks of Mountain House being very flat, but down in the College Park neighborhood, kind of back behind the water tanks, we're working on the planning for neighborhood A7. There's no specific name, but it's actually our one neighborhood that's going to be on a hill. So it's going to take a little longer than most to figure out, but work's underway on neighborhood A7 right now. Let's see, do we have any more pretty pictures? Keep going. If you're wondering what's going on directly across the street, adjacent to the river or the creek, the Mountain House Creek, that is the final neighborhood in the Altamont neighborhood, or what we used to call neighborhood G. And that's going to be 254 homes. Some are attached, some are detached. That was originally going to be condominiums back in the olden days, but nobody builds condominiums anymore. So it's going to be a mix of attached and single family units on that. Let's see, it's about a 21-acre site. We think they'll be starting to sell homes probably about 9 months from now. Still have a lot of work to do on all the underground out in that neighborhood. And that just gives you another shot of neighborhood G, the Creekside project over there. I think it's going to be Lennar Homes that's building those homes over there. And then some of the other projects we have going on are, there's a small office building going up by the sewer plant, and that's just a construction office going up on Bethany. But if you're wondering what's popping up out of the ground when you're going down Byron Road, that's actually part of the master plan for Mountain House goes all the way over to the east to Wickland Road. And so at least it does north of Byron. And so this is a little project that's going on up there. They've been working on that for about 2 years. And then of course, across the street, as we expand the community, we also have to expand the ability to flush our toilets. You have one, can't have one without the other. And so what you see beyond that is a sewer plant, but what are we showing her first? Okay. Oh, this is the school. This is the Costa School down in the College Park neighborhood. They are still working as hard as they can. It's really tough with the construction business right now, but they're working out there 12 hours a day to try and get that school completed by next fall. It's just called a Bethany office building. Yeah. I can't remember the name of the developer. Alpine Development, I think. It's just a small contractor who's building that building up there. Pardon? Pardon? Yes, yes. That area has been annexed. Yeah, the CSD boundaries go all the way over to Wickland Road, north of Byron. So that will be included in. That's it's a private construction company that's building that building up there. I think it's just a single purpose renter who's going to rent it. No, it's not CSD operations. No, it's a private contractor doing a private development. So speaking of private development for rent, I think they're going to be called along Arnado, 304 units here in the first phase, 176 apartment units in the second phase. It's going to be called the Aviara Apartments. And you can see since last fall, they've been working on all the underground. And I think they're going to pull the first 96 building permits next week because they usually build them one building at a time. And so they're probably still about a year plus from renting any of the units, because you can see nothing's come out of the ground, but we're expecting a lot to come out of the ground between now and when hopefully we'll have rainy season again sometime this year. And if you're wondering about the other big ditch that our friends from Mountain House Developers are building north of Byron, we have two major when everything flows down the storm drain, it has to go somewhere. There's one with the ghost bicycle that you notice now at the southwest corner of Grant Line and Central. Everything on the the west side of town drains into that ditch or basin. I don't know what our new fancy words. And then everything on the east side of town ends up just north of Byron Road into this water quality basin, because we have to make sure we filter all the storm runoff so that before it goes in the creek and elsewhere, it's treated. And we've gotten all the the bad chemicals out of it. Speaking of bad chemicals, and as I mentioned earlier, I jumped the gun. This is our expanded wastewater treatment plant under construction. It's still got, what, Dave, another next October, correct? Yeah, I've got about another year to go on the expansion of our wastewater treatment plant. And then hopefully, with the way trends are on wastewater, which I'm sure you want to hear hours and hours about, but I won't do it. We're hoping that this will be the last and final expansion of our wastewater treatment plant. It's about $61 million to do that expansion, but it should cover all the rest of the development along Mountain House Parkway and north of Byron and everywhere else in the community. But lots going on out there at the wastewater treatment. A lot of things that happen underground out there at the wastewater treatment plant. But obviously, before any of our sewage goes into Old River, it requires lots of treatment first. And go back one. And the other thing we've done is as we grow, we have to add water storage. So we've converted a raw water storage tank now to a water tank where we can store water. I think at our next community meeting, we'll talk not only about solid waste and trash, give you some more information on what we're doing about water supply, because that's a big issue with every community, but particularly here in Mountain House. And then, of course, everybody's aware of Safeway. If they can just get some switch gear, they can open, but that's probably still, what they need is probably still out in a boat somewhere very far, far away. And until they know that switch gear is here, obviously they
You want to go Cordes Park?
They can't buy things well in advance. So they're conservatively looking at December for an opening for Safeway. And it's, again, supply chain issues. They had originally planned on being open this week or next week, but that's not happening. And of course, Starbucks is doing very well. Next slide. Right. Yeah. And then the Red Rose Montessori School opened over at the corner of Mustang and Central Parkway. And then we had our first business other than Starbucks, the JEI Learning Institute, over near Safeway as well. And then on September 28th, the gas station will open over at Safeway. So Mountain House will have importantly, its first gas station. But, and we expect the rest of the businesses in the center to open closer to when Safeway opens. But again, the supply chain challenges are great. So why don't we go on to the parks plan? So when Mountain House was created back in the 90s, there was an original plan developed for all the future amenities. And obviously one of the key elements of any community, every community, you got to be able to flush the toilets and drink water and have public safety. But I think the other thing that really defines a community are its parks and recreation programs, because we all just don't get in our house and then leave at the end of the day. We have all these other amenities that we want to take advantage of. And so back 20 some years ago, when they put together the master plan for Mountain House that was approved in 1994 and the CSD was put together in 1996, a key element of that was this parks plan that we have. And it pretty much stayed, the parks plan that was developed back in those days, with the neighborhood parks and the community parks throughout the community, the general principles were kept in place really until the last couple of years, when we realized that certainly a lot of things have changed in the last 25 years. So it's very important when you're looking at your recreation park needs that you keep up with the times. And so beginning in 2020, we started updating our Parks, Recreation, and Leisure plan. And we also put together a business plan for our recreation programs as well. And so we spent a good chunk of 2020 and 2021 doing a number of things we'll talk about in a moment to get community feedback on parks and better understand the current demand for parks and recreation facilities. So keep going. And so we did a survey that probably had 2 to 3 times the response we've ever had on any other survey. Keep going. That we had, a lot of people respond to. You could see from the chart here, it was a good cross section of the community. About 80% with children at home. All balanced across the neighborhoods and different interest groups were all included in the survey. We thought we got a very good cross-section of the community. And you can see we asked a lot of questions, asked people what are the different things they're interested in for physical activity, and keep going. And then what are the types of gathering spaces that you're interested in? Keep going. What are the most important things for practicing and playing sports in Mountain House? What are the big things you'd like to see the next couple of years? And then what are some of the things you'd like to see in the future that may not be in the plan now? And then we actually tried to get a better feel for what kind of park design people are interested in, and people made it clear that they'd still like to have things like grass in their parks and not just back to nature type of look, since we have plenty of that already. And then, looked at different features, see different kinds of, just do clear all and get that. There you go. Just go up to clear. All right, now go below that, whoops. Next slide. And, gave folks an idea. We got a good idea of what some of the different programs are that people would be interested in. And we had 2 board workshops at public meetings where we talked a lot about what the board and the community's interests were in different types of uses. Did one in July and then another one in September that year. Supplemented with all the survey information and came up with sort of an updated vision for our park system. And just to reinforce it, reinforced a lot of what we were already looking at. There were a number of tweaks, but just as a review, we really have 3 to 4 different types of parks in the community. We have the parks that are in your neighborhood, plus some of the mini parks that are in the neighborhoods where in Wickland and Bethany, we have those additional parks because parts of the neighborhood are so far away from the neighborhood park. And so everybody in town, as part of the plan, has to be within so many walking feet of a park, which is why you have the mini parks in certain neighborhoods. We also have our 3 large community parks that I'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. That Central Park, the partially completed Central Park, is the only one of the community parks completed so far. And then our linear parks, of which we have 1 significant linear park right now, and that's the Mountain House Creek Park, which is actually going to be doubling in size north of Byron and is going to have a lot more enhancements. And then we'll have 1 large park up on the Old River as well. There'll be 1 large natural park up on Old River that will tie into that linear park system. So that's kind of the hierarchy of parks in the community. And then we've got in detail within the park plan, all these different elements where you can see, you look at the top of the map, all that green is the Old River Park. The green going through the center of the community is the Mountain House Creek Park. And then there's 3 larger, the neighborhood parks are all about 5 acres, and mini parks are smaller. And then the north and south community parks are about 20 acres each. So they're large enough to have sports fields and other activities that you couldn't fit in a neighborhood park. And then we have Central Park, which is kind of the mothership that will have all of what the other community parks have, along with some additional amenities not included in the other parks. And so go ahead. And so in the plan, it goes into more detail about some of the desired elements in each one of the community parks, with the big difference in the community Central Park are things like a skateboard park and an aquatic facility and a recreation center and things of that nature, beyond just the play fields. Keep going. And it shows you kind of the vision of sort of the different feel in a central community park. The Creek Park, it's more just a linear park with, those are more walking, biking type of things. Those aren't active recreation type parks, those linear parks. They're more just being able to, because that was a big, in fact, that was a big part of the demand, was just the ability to walk and bike and connect to the different neighborhoods in those. So the North Park will probably have a little bit different character than the South and Central Park because you have a larger active adult community. You may end up with a, pickleball courts up in the North Community Park. As we plan those parks, we'll get into more detail. And same with the South Community Park as well. Each park these will be larger, but also work to be consistent with the demands of the community. And so again, each of these are 20+ acre parks. We'll have lighting so that, you can have more sport activities at all hours. And then the Old River Park and Creek Park, this talks a little bit more about the desired elements in those. And kind of the feel of those parks. And then we also did a bike and pedestrian and trail plan to make sure we tied all of our trails, the main spine, and then try to tie that in to make sure that there were other ways of tying people in from park to park without having to go out on a busy street. And this talks a little more about that vision. And then there's the trail map, kind of the identified trail map, which is mainly the linear parks and then the PG&E right-of-ways. And there'll be in the neighborhood J and neighborhood I, where the golf course was originally planned. That area, it's no longer going to be a golf course, but there'll be large swaths of open space tying into the neighborhood and community parks in that area as well. That'll create some nice walkways all the way around those neighborhoods. So we've got this overall park plan. And then the other real challenge, as we go to the next slide, is how do these things get paid for? And I was careful and I didn't put in many slides because, again, I could spend almost as much time on the financing as I could on wastewater. Didn't want to get into too much detail, but it's important to note. Right. Yeah, the people online can't hear, but he was asking about how we deal with the overwhelming demand for parks in the community, and that's why I needed to talk about the financing plan next. Your question was just a little early on that. I think it's just design. We're just highlighting different parts of the slides on those. That's all. I don't think there's any specific delineation on those. So so you're talking about like the part that's blue here? It was more just to highlight certain points within the slides. And I'll make the slideshow available so everybody can download it if they want to. And we're recording this as well so people can look. So on the financing, the real challenge, every growing community, the biggest challenge is trying to figure out how to have infrastructure built in a manner where it keeps up with the growth in the community. And it's always the biggest challenge we have because it's difficult to build the amenities before the community is in place. But often what happens is that it takes a lot of time to accumulate the funding to build the amenities once the community's moved in. When any new home is built in any community, there are a whole number of fees that house has to pay. And one of the major there's two major fees that typically you have to pay when you pull a building permit. One is a traffic fee, because every house and every business contributes to cars being out on all of the main streets in the community. And so every house has to pay their fair share of their impact on those roads that have to be built. Again, this is for the cost of building the road, not the cost of maintaining the road. That comes out of, when you pump gas, there's a certain amount of money that goes towards roads. And in our taxes that we pay, there's money that goes towards the maintenance of the roads. But the upfront cost of building the roads comes out of your building permit. When it comes to public facilities, such as fire stations, such as town hall, and all of our parks, those come out of a fee called our community facilities fee. And so that money is what gets accumulated so that we can build all of these amenities. And so the real challenge quite often is accumulating enough money in those funds so that you can build all of these amenities. And Mountain House, of course, as most of you know, had the misfortune of, just as a lot of these things were on schedule to be built in 2008, 2009, 2010, the world came to an end, and it made it much more difficult for a whole number of reasons to then finance a lot of the future public improvements within the community. And we've had to renegotiate with our developers when these things get built. And so technically, until all of the pretty much until the original agreement was that once everything is built south of Byron, we'll finish off the park south of Byron. And as Dave Sargent can tell you, that when he was furiously working here 15 years ago, that was going to be in 6 or 12 months. And now we're 16 years later, and it's still not quite complete. But we've been working with the development community to accelerate some of this construction so that it can happen sooner. But it's always this question of finding the right timing between when do we have the money to build? Do we have enough money to pay for the maintenance? How do we coordinate all of this timing? And so these fees come in. The builder then is required, in most communities, those fees accumulate, and then the city builds the parks. But back when the county set up Mountain House, the county said, we don't want the government to have to front any of the money. The development community has to front every public project, and then we pay them back through the fees. Usually it's the other way around, where the city collects the fees, then they build the parks. In Mountain House, which is unique to anywhere I've been, and I've been doing this for 38 years, in Mountain House, the developers, through prearranged agreements, when they've built X number of housing units, are then required to build the amenity. There's a whole detailed agreement with every subdivision as to when that happens. And then they get reimbursed through those fees. And that's a very simple overview that has thousands of pages related to it. So what we've been attempting to do the last couple of years, because things didn't, things never go perfectly as planned, but 2009, 2010 in particular was very imperfect as things go. And so we've been catching up. It's the same reason we had a bunch of challenges down at Grant Line Road and getting that built in a timely manner as well. But the board has tasked me with making sure we get back on schedule. And I commit to you, my focus is to make sure, and all of our staff's focus, particularly Nader, who was here before they built the first sidewalk, we want to make sure that when you live here, you actually get to use the amenities now and not for your grandkids someday. So it's been a real challenge. For example, Safeway. Everybody wants to know why Safeway took so long. Well, the builder won't tell you this right out loud, but the way things were structured in Mountain House, because of all the infrastructure he had to put in around surrounding Safeway, hoping that Safeway would come and then hopefully some other business would come soon after, the developer had to spend about $9 million on Raphael Street, on Grand, on the widening of Mountain House Parkway. So $9 million just so that Safeway had all the roads and traffic signals in place. So they had to front $9 million on that. And I think you got what, Dave, about $2 million from Safeway. And so that's why Safeway took so long, is the economics in Mountain House sometimes are very difficult. The county tried to set this up to where the community didn't take a lot of real estate risk, but sometimes that meant that particularly on commercial development, there's a lot of money that has to go in before anything comes back, because commercial development doesn't happen as quickly as residential development. When you build roads around a residential development, most of the time the houses are going to get built quickly. But when you build Safeway, then you're hoping for CVS or Walgreens, and everything else, that takes a lot longer. And so luckily MHD decided, you know what, even though we're going to be losing a lot of money initially on Safeway, we know that to keep selling houses in this town, and so that you guys don't pick on Dave so much, we need to just get Safeway done. So that's been the challenge with Safeway, and we've been working really hard to work with them to see if we can't get the rest of the town center built sooner than later, because we all know you want those amenities. And it's the same with all these Central Park improvements, is technically, until they sell the land next door here for some additional housing just on the other side of Central Parkway and get all those built, technically they were under no obligation to complete Central Park. But they also realize it's good business for the amenities to be built. And so we're working out an arrangement with MHD so they can accelerate some of the improvements. So the deal basically is that this remaining 42 acres of Central Park, the first thing, the amphitheater, the tennis courts, and the dog park are adjacent to where there's already infrastructure in place. And we want to work on getting those done very quickly. And so the goal is to get, we've been working on this, we've been working in small groups, we've been talking to folks in the community. This is our chance for a large discussion with the community. Our goal is, after we get this feedback, that hopefully we'll get those under construction next year. But by the time those are under construction, we're also working to see if we can't, you know, they've got certain dates on here for the next round of amenities, but we're coming up, and I've got to get all this approved by the board first, but we're coming up, we think, with some potential solutions to accelerate the balance of the park, because we all know a pool is very important to the community. Having more indoor recreation communities are important to the community. Having a cricket pitch is very important to the community. So and having, you know, one set of Little League fields, you know, if it hadn't been for the recession, this would have been done 10 years ago. It's not. All we can do is our best for now. Sure. So for those on Zoom, the question is, how much of our property tax dollars stay in Mountain House? So I'll give you the good news first. The special tax that you pay, 100% of that stays in Mountain House. The county would not have allowed Mountain House to exist without that special tax. I know it hurts every year to pay that special tax, but the county doesn't like to share their property tax, so they made us put that in there. So the special tax, 100% of that goes to Mountain House. Your Melrose tax and your bond issue, 100% of that goes to the school district. Your 1% property tax value, we get 15 cents on the dollar. The other 85 cents goes to the county and the state and to the schools, essentially, the rest of the $1 property tax. So for all the amenities we have, we get a very small percentage of that 1% property tax, which is why back when they were putting the financing plan together 26 years ago, Mountain House would not have existed without that special tax being put in place, because the challenge we have is that the state likes to dump a lot of responsibilities on counties, and then the county's told, pay for that out of the property tax. So when a new city comes along and says, well, we want some of that property tax, the county said, well, we have all these things we have to pay for. We really don't want to have to share any of that with you. And because they're bigger than us, they usually win. And because the county was the one who created us, they got to decide how much property tax we receive and how much additional property tax we would need to be in business. In fact, there's been no new cities in California for 11 years. And the reason for that is because most cities don't have our special tax. So when they go to incorporate, the county says, well, you can incorporate, but we're not giving you any money to incorporate. So luckily, we were designed 26 years ago to be financially self-sufficient, and that's our goal, is to continue to be fiscally self-sufficient. 15 or 16, might be 15.9, I think is the exact number. Very little. So if you pay $5,000 a year, we get $780, $800 of that. Mm-hmm. So all of the land where Safeway is privately held. It's owned by Mountain House developers. who bought from Trimark, who was the original subdivider of all the land. And while they own all the land, when they build on any land, they have a responsibility to build all of the public improvements as well. So the developer has to build all of the roads, all of the sidewalks, put in all of the utilities, all the storm drainage, traffic lights, everything. That's on their dime. And most of that they don't get reimbursed for. Some of that, a little bit of that they might get reimbursed for out of future fees, but a lot of it comes out of their pocket. So they had to front $9 million to get about $2 million back from the land sale for Safeway, with the reasoning being that hopefully will spur more of the land to sell in the future where they would make their money back. And they knew to keep selling houses in town. I think Dave's salespeople over at the Welcome Center said that we're all going to quit unless you get a grocery store, because that's all I ever hear in the building, right, Dave? So it was not a good economic deal, but they knew in the long run it would make a lot of sense. But they can tell you it's been a real struggle. You know, part of it was even back before the recession, grocery stores used to be built once you had 10,000 people. And now it's more like 20 to 25,000 people before they're built a grocery store. And then the world's changed again. I won't get too much into retail, but Target, Costco, Walmart in particular now all take a good chunk of grocery store sales, as do the Wincos of the world, the large format that don't come into a city this size. And so what used to be, you could build 3 neighborhoods and have a grocery store, that doesn't happen anymore. You know, everything's gotten to the mega. And when they planned Mountain House, they didn't, back in 1989, they had no idea that the entire world would be over there crammed into that space next to the mall over in Tracy. You know, it was none of that existed. The Tracy Mall wasn't built till 94, and a lot of the zoning, the master plan for Mountain House was done in the late 80s, early 90s. You know, they thought over here at the corner of Central Parkway and Main Street that they'd get a Target. Well, that will never happen nowadays. And you're not going to get all the things that used to go around Target, because half of those stores don't exist anymore. It's just the reality that it's giant or nothing in the retail business nowadays. You mean, well, about sometime between 6 and 12 months from now, the board will likely be directing you to vote on whether or not to become a city. And one of the big differences when we become a city is we do share in not just property tax, but also sales tax and business licenses and things of that nature. So then then we would get some benefit out of those centers, because they do bring on additional costs with them as well. So that's one of the main reasons to become a community, so you can have those dollars coming in. So when we incorporate, there'll probably be very little change in the property tax that we receive. That's one of the things we have to arm wrestle. But back in the 90s, Sacramento County passed some legislation, because so many cities were trying to become cities in Sac County, that if you even put a little nick in the county's revenue, you have to let them keep it. So essentially, when you incorporate, the county has to be left whole. And we'll probably have a nice little session on that next spring when we're in the incorporation process, where we can talk more about all the painful things to know about incorporation. But the simple bottom line is not much will change on taxes, except for the ability to get sales tax, business license taxes, and bed taxes if any hotels are built. Yes, Bernice. Right. The sales tax, most of the sales tax goes to the state. There's a 0.5-cent sales tax that goes to transportation, and then the rest of it goes to the state, except for 1 out of the 7 or 8 cents, whatever what is the rate in town now? 8%, 8.25, something like that. 8.25, I think. So we get 1 cent out of the 8.25. So for example, if a gas station does $5 million a year in sales, that's $50,000 a year to Mountain House. You know, grocery stores don't generate a lot of sales tax either, because a lot of you might make 50 to 100,000 as a city on on a grocery store, whereas a Target is 250,000 to 400,000 a year. A Costco is $1 million a year. A car dealership can be, even more than that, but I won't bore you with. The reality is actually with cars, once we become a city, there are technical ways that we can recapture some of the sales tax, but that's, again, way beyond our scope tonight, where I'm glad you're asking all these questions, but I want to make sure we got on to the park side of things. But I think this is why the board wanted us to have some of these meetings, so we could have more of this interaction about our district finances and some of the other things that are going on. So at this point, are there any other financing questions? Oh, one more slide. I think I can't remember if I put it here or in the next one. One more. One more thing to keep in the back of your mind is as we're evolving into a larger community, and we had the question about all the demand for parks and services, that's really a full-time job. We're starting to hire up our recreation department, but I think the other key element, because our board of directors have a lot of other things, as you've heard tonight, that they have to deal with. And so pretty much every city our size has what's called a Parks and Rec Commission. And what that Parks and Rec Commission is, it's an advisory board that helps work through a lot of the issues related to park rentals, facility rentals, priorities, future amenities, maintenance standards, all those types of things. And so the board has directed us to solicit interest in a Parks and Rec Commission. And then the board chair, along with the board, will then review all the applications and then appoint a Parks and Rec Commission. They're 4-year terms, although for the first round, they want to stagger the terms so that everybody doesn't. So you want to make sure you don't lose your whole board at one time, commission at one time. So it'll be 2-year and 4-year terms this first time around. And they'll probably be looking at all the applications later this year. We wanted to get a whole bunch of applications before we handed them over to the board for review. So that, again, is on our website if you're interested in becoming a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission. So I think I'll turn it over, unless there's any other pressing questions. Yes, ma'am. On Main Street? That's a sewer pump station, isn't it? The water treatment plant's on Byron at Great Valley. Yeah, that's just a small lift station. Yes. Your water bill? We do about 100, we treat about 190 million gallons a month of water. And all that water comes in from Byron Bethany. We have all the pipelines that have to be paid for. And we have a full-time, we have a full-time staff that treats all of our water. And so we have to buy the water. We have to pay, 1, to purchase the water, 2, to wheel the water from the irrigation district to us. And then we have to treat that water. And then we have to distribute that water through the community and store that water, for peak times. Sure. Okay.
I was told that we're still paying the developer for building that treatment plant. Are we still paying the developer?
Yes. Yes. One of the more unique factors in Mountain House is that back in 1998, when they were deciding how to finance all of the infrastructure, and again, there's hundreds of millions of dollars that the developer had to front for stormwater, water treatment, wastewater treatment. Normally in a community, we talked about when you pay your building permit, you pay towards roads and you pay towards recreation and things like that. But for a number of reasons, back in 1998, the decision was made that the developer, instead of requiring the home builder to pay $20,000 or $30,000 up front for the capital cost of building our utilities, they would instead spread that out onto the utility bills instead. So instead of your house costing more upfront, it's put in the utility bill instead, is the simplest way to describe it. And then eventually, as the plants need to be replaced in the future, that fee will go towards future replacement. But probably for the next 20 to 25 years, that funding will be required to pay for the water treatment plant, those water quality basins, and the wastewater plant. So again, we're about to do finish a $61 million expansion of the wastewater plant. MHD a couple of years ago just finished a $67 million expansion to the water treatment plant. We probably spent another $10 million on the different water quality basins and storm drain basins in the community. So it's unique in Mountain House in that those are a separate charge on the utility bill instead of those being built into the home price. You know, everybody who buys a house is paying towards that. The difference in Mountain House is you're not paying it in your mortgage, you're paying it in your utility bill instead. All right, two more questions, then we want to get on to the parks. Go ahead. Go ahead. Hold on.
You mentioned about Mountain House self-sustaining. So besides the property tax from the residential area, what other revenue generation schemes you have so that it can be self-sustaining, for example, office spaces or?
So if you look at, it's one of these things where right now, 95% of all of our taxes are generated by residential. Once we get businesses, they will also be generating their fair share of property tax as well. The reality is that when you don't have businesses, you don't have the cost of businesses. When you then get the businesses, those taxes generated from the businesses cover their cost. You know, for a shopping center, there is additional policing costs you don't have in a typical neighborhood, for example. So our tax system was designed so that essentially the businesses pay for themselves and the residences pay for themselves. You know, businesses don't demand, they don't use parks a lot, but they do use fire and police a lot. So it kind of balances out. But again, for us to be self-sustaining, it was important that we had that additional special tax because 15 cents on the dollar is not nearly enough of the property tax to pay for, you know, maintaining the community. And of course, the hope is that as we become a community and have sales tax and bed tax, that will help continue to maintain the business areas, because typically for the business areas, you do need those additional costs. Because if you look, the vast majority of your policing costs are typically within business districts, not within your residential districts, for example. And your businesses put a lot more wear and tear on the roads as well. The vast majority of our capital costs for transportation is funded by commercial, not residential. You know, something like Safeway, they paid probably close to $2 million just in traffic impact fees on that development. All right, so one more question. So the question was the water. So again, we had a session we did at this time last year where we talked about water. We've been very busy working on the water situation. We have water rights of about 9,500 acre feet, plus some additional rights that we're going to have north of Byron. We have, in theory, we're fine when it comes to water supply. The problem is, in practice, the state is beginning to impose themselves on us a lot more than was ever anticipated back in 1990. And so we're looking at a whole series of options to make sure that we're not going to have issues in the future on water. We think we've got the short term dealt with. Our friends over at the South San Joaquin Irrigation District have agreed to help us with any water shortages we might have had this summer, which we ended up not having. But we've got a whole bunch of other things that we're looking at. We're looking at groundwater storage, potentially at wells, potentially at more access to water out of Old River. There's a whole number there. The Los Vaqueros Reservoir is looking at an expansion over the next 10 years, because the main thing we need is water in very dry years. We have, in a normal year, or even a not normal year, but not a year like this year, we've got plenty of water for now and well into the future. That's one of the things we had to show back in 1990 before we could become a community. But we do have a challenge in these years that were supposed to happen once every 50 years and now are happening once every 5 years. And so we already, the board had directed staff, and back after the 2015 drought, to start taking actions, and all those actions. You have to remember, with water, you're not dealing with a sun, stopwatch, you're dealing with a sundial. So we think we're getting very close on a lot of the efforts that have been going on the last 5 to 7 years to make sure that we've got water in those years as well. But again, I don't want to take over this meeting when, hopefully, I think by November, when we talk about all the changes to solid waste, we can give you an update. And I think we'll have a lot more to talk about, hopefully right now or 2 months from now, on all, again, that's, again, another one of those 6 or 8 hour discussions we could have. But just want you to know that your board's very focused on that. And it's something that is frankly our #1 priority, is to make sure that you can turn on. Really, I was taught in city manager school many years ago that you have 2 jobs: make sure the water turns on and the water flushes, and everything else is secondary to that. And I plan accordingly. Okay, one last question. Yes. Yeah, and we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. But I figure I better turn it over to Dave.
We do have one question online. Is there any thought to change Byron Road into a bypass similar to what they have done in Brentwood? The concern is with Byron being a main commute road and the neighborhoods and services being on both sides of Byron, with pedestrians be safe crossing Byron.
Well, Byron is, that's why we put the bridge over Byron. It's, we're gonna be limiting over access to Byron to just Mountain House Parkway and Great Valley Parkway in the future, which is consistent with the future State Route 239 plan. All right, wanted to hand it over to Dave Sargent with Mountain House Developers.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening. I'm Dave Sargent with Mountain House Developers. Mountain House Developers LLC is one of the real estate developers actively working in the community. So we built out some of the past neighborhoods. We built out Cuesta and Hanson and Cordis, and then we've got some activity in Town Center. In the future, we own the property north of Byron Road. There's about 5,000 more housing units up in that area. So probably busy, active in the community for the next 10 years plus, building out the rest of Mountain House. So tonight we're here to talk about Central Park. So as part of our development projects, the mitigation that we have to provide is to build out the parks for the CSD. So we, Mountain House Developers, a private company, we worked hand in hand with the Community Services District. So that's Steve Pinkerton and Nodder and others here at the CSD to follow the design. A lot of that design follows the Parks and Leisure Plan, which actually Steve was running through that before in the meeting. And while that's based on input from the community about what kind of programming these parks have to have. So specifically, again, tonight we're here to talk about the expansion of Central Park. And you guys probably all are familiar with the first phase of Central Park that was built back in 2005. So it's about 11 acres here on Central Parkway with the baseball field and the play area. So that's all kind of shown in this kind of lighter green here. The future phases of Central Park are shown here. And let's see, so and there's going to be broken down into phases in the future. So the second phase is always been planned to be this baseball field complex. So for like a pinwheel style, there's 4 baseball fields here. And then the third phase is this larger area here. So there's a lot of open fields, and it's a combination of multi-purpose fields for soccer And then we've sized them and laid them out so that there could be two full-size cricket fields, one here and one there. And then some parking, some picnic areas, volleyball, I guess that could be badminton too, skate park and more parking. So those are the larger phases. There's some additional work down here. There is going to be a community center, which is actually going to be right across the street. So right across Providence right here. It's like let's see, it's going to be 20,000 square feet. I think this building, the town hall is about 30,000 square feet. So it's a little bit smaller than this building. The library's about 20,000 square feet. So about the same footprint as the library. With that, so two pools, so a lap pool and then a rec pool for people just more casual swimming. Did you have a question? That phase, that's in the third phase right now, yeah. And then just to clarify, so I'll talk shortly and then we can have some questions and then just so hold your questions for just a minute. And then in a minute, Mary from Vandertulen is going to come up and she's going to do some detailed presentations on the concepts for the tennis court, the dog park, and the amphitheater. And she'll stop after each one of those components so you guys can ask questions and all that. Anyway, so let's see. Okay, so anyway, so Mary's going to do the presentation, and then everyone always wants to know, when is it going to happen? What's the schedule? And so this first initial expansion we're going to do is focused on the amphitheater, the tennis court, and the dog park. So that's what we're working on right now. We've been working on the concepts with the CSD for several months, and after tonight, we'll collect the comments from tonight. We'll work on the construction drawings to actually get out and build these things. And the plan is, if we get the plans done, we would start construction on those three components in May of 2023. It might take up to a year to build, so we could see those open up for use in May of 2024. And then beyond that, there's lots more park that I'm sure everyone's interested in. The idea was to start the design work on phase 2 in 2023 after the design of this initial expansion's done. And then from there, phase 3 is going to follow. We don't have a definitive schedule for that. And I know everybody is anxious to have the pool, but it's not the timeline for that is not determined yet. Well, any questions on the general? Okay, lots of questions. So let's start in the back. And if you guys, so Mary's going to talk a lot of details. So if this is just the larger questions, then we can get to the detail. You want to go first?
So first, I'd like to say thank you and acknowledge the fact that you guys are making a few cricket fields for the adults and kids here. And I'm pretty sure me and a few other people would also either support or also want to ask for cricket cages. Yeah, so for the development of cricket in the US and Mountain House, it's basically like a small area where kids and adults can practice, and you won't have to go all the way to Fremont and places like that to play for academies and practice. So, yeah.
So great. And then we do have some representatives from Vandertulen, our landscape architect. They're here tonight. They're taking notes. So we'll get all your ideas, and then we can work on those and trying to find ways to incorporate it if we can.
Thanks for the updates on tennis courts. What about your plan or support for table tennis, ping pong games? Because there are a lot of people who are interested in it, but they cannot enjoy it because of lack of a lot of facilities. So any plans for it?
So table tennis, not specifically. I can't remember if it's in the Parks and Leisure plan. We'll have to look at that. And table tennis is typically indoors, correct? Yeah. So it'd be in the recreation center. There's going to be a gymnasium, and then the exact plan of the recreation center has not been worked out yet. So there's time to work that in there. So we'll note it today, and we'll talk to the CSD about trying to incorporate it into the plans. Yes. Badminton, there's volleyball courts in the outdoor Central Park. And then there's going to be a gymnasium of some kind, like a big open space multi-purpose room in the recreation center. So that might be good for the badminton. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to, thanks everyone that, you guys are doing this. So, but I also want to know, is there any plan to actually improve the existing cricket field, like the one right here? Because the pitch is very bad, and if you could actually, have a plan to improve that as well. And another question I have is basically following up on the kids' request, where we would definitely need some kind of a cricket cages along with the cricket ground, so that there could be regular practice sessions if the cricket fields are occupied by like soccer teams or any other sports. So similar to what other cities have, like Fremont or San Ramon. So in addition, part of the cricket field basically.
Just to note, we're working very closely with the cricket community right now, and we will be facilitating some additional meetings very soon. We've been doing a lot of research on that. We have staff assigned to that for both the temporary field we're working on, and then there'll be for the large fields. We're not only looking at these multi-purpose fields that could include cricket at Central Park, but we're looking at one at South Community Park, and we'll be talking more about that in about a month. So it'd be good, we're gonna have a whole separate discussion on cricket very soon. Again, asking of the phasing, well, we're working on this, there's 2 cricket pitches that'll probably be built very soon in the south part of the community. There's one at the Costa School. And then again, we are looking to expedite a cricket pitch at the future South Community Park as well. So we're trying to start those much sooner, but again, on cricket, we were going to have a whole separate discussion. We're trying the phasing, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be negotiating with them on the phasing of the balance of the park. The focus this evening is on this first phase of the park, but we will be working on the other phases very soon. Not necessarily. Here's what I can tell you. For next year, these three projects are what are on the board for next year, but we're also working on for next year, the school district's building a cricket pitch in the next year. We're looking at building potentially a cricket pitch in the next year at South Community Park. And we've already cleared the land for the temporary cricket pitch just to the east of Community Park. And as far as the phasing on this, that'll be a discussion at a future time.
So we are not clear about the timelines for the cricket 360 degrees ground in the Costa. And second thing is the timelines. We wanted to have a timelines or the buffer period for the phase 1, 2, and 3. So I'm not pretty sure about who has taken. Usually who take the decision for the first phase, what should be done or what not. And then it has been mentioned that's a multi-purpose, and then we don't know that we exclusively get the cricket, including cricket means only just a field as such, or the cages, or how. So we have like a young adults, youngsters, the kids, the woman is also playing, and then we have majority of them. We have 2 different communities here as the MHCC and the MTCA. So we have more than 1,500 people along with the kids, and the more than 2,000 people we are generating as such. How much? 4,000 per? per week we are generating, actually, we are,
As I said earlier, the developer is not obligated to build anything right now. We're working with him on these first 3 projects because they're adjacent to existing amenities. We've been talking to MHTC. We're going to be talking to MHTC. We're doing everything we can to expedite cricket at these locations. That's a separate meeting. We'll be having that dialogue very soon.
we are losing time, isn't it? So why it is not in the first phase?
I don't need to repeat myself. Be happy to talk to you afterwards.
So, and real quick, I mean, Steve, that interim cricket pitch you're talking about, the interim cricket pitch you're working on is right here, correct, Steve?
Correct.
Right. So, I mean, the CSD's heard that you guys, need cricket for some time, and actually, this is the phase 2 baseball field, but that's several years out. So what they've done is they basically said, well, this is going to be the interim cricket pitch. And I think they've already done some earthwork out there to start that. I don't know what the schedule is on it.
It's pretty close to ready. That's why we want to have this meeting between the different groups. So we've been moving at light speed. So I would disagree with you saying we're not making cricket a priority. South Park,
And
we're
the
working.
South Park is
Yeah,
coming. Yeah.
We plan on bringing that to the board for discussion in October.
Yep.
What was the original plan? Like, I guess this plan got modified. Yeah.
This is actually pretty close to the original plan. I'd say the one of the main differences is that instead of 2 big, large cricket fields, this was a high school size baseball diamond. In addition to the other baseball fields over here. So that was one change that what they did when they revised the Parks and Leisure Plan, they got rid of one of the baseball fields. I think that because of the demand for tennis in the community, there's been some more tennis courts added. And I think those are the cricket. It's been a couple of years, I think. Yeah, but I don't remember the exact timing. So a few more questions, and then then we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end.
That's why I wanted to say something, because I really want to get through the rest of the program. But however, what we all have to understand is that the demographics in Mountain House has changed a lot over the years, and we all have to work together so everyone can enjoy all the amenities in Mountain House. And I think that has to be kind of understood, that it's a process, and I want to get to the end of it.
All right, let's do one more question, and then we'll get to Mary's presentation on the specific concepts.
Yeah, I think so. Are we considering to have any indoor places? Because wind here is very crazy. So going to outside feels like so wind is very crazy in Mountain House. Like we have parks and a lot of places. We cannot go out and during like windy times. Is there any plan to have some indoor activities or indoor stadium like badminton or basketball inside, like tennis court?
So yeah, so there's the recreation center, which is actually going to be, again, right across the street. So it's going to be a 20,000 square foot recreation center, and probably about 8,000 square feet of that will be a big multi-purpose room. So it'll be basketball, badminton, and there'll be other smaller community rooms where you could do maybe table tennis or things like that. So okay, so we're going to go through. So Mary's going to present the 3 different components, and then she'll stop along the way to answer specific questions, and then we can, and then at the end, there'll be time we'll all be here to stand by and answer your questions if you guys want to have a closer look at some of the designs. Here you go, Mary.
Hi, everyone. My name's, can you guys hear me all right? No? Closer? Is that good? Okay. Hi, I'm Mary McGovern, and I'm with Vandertool and Associates. We're the landscape architect that's worked on these plans to develop them with the CSD and Mountain House developers. First, I'm going to talk about the tennis court complex. This complex, the first phase of work on the tennis court complex is going to include these top 6 courts. and this building right here, which includes an office and storage building as well as restrooms. The tennis court facility is also going to be across the street from this building that we're currently in on Providence Street. And the existing 3 tennis courts are located right here. Next to the building, there is a patio that's going to serve as a dining patio, as well as there's a set of 3-tiered bleachers to view the number 1 court. This area is going to have a shade sail as well. Our primary entrance to the tennis court is located closest to Providence Street. There's also going to be additional exits around the court and out to future Raphael Street. The facility is going to be fully fenced as well. Around the tennis courts, there's going to be 12-foot tall chain link fences, and in between the individual courts, there will be lower 4-foot tall fences. Any fences that are securing the facility that are not directly adjacent to the courts will be lower 6-foot tall tube steel fences. In between each of the courts, there's sets of player benches with shade coverings, and in between the larger groupings of courts, there's spectator bleachers that are 2-tiered, and they also have shade covers. At the bottom here, these 3 courts are going to be part of, I believe, phase 3. Around this facility, landscaping is going to be very limited near the tennis courts to reduce problems such as leaf litter or irrigation spilling onto the courts. Trees will be evergreen and they're held off also to reduce with leaf litter as much as possible. And I think those are the main features that are happening at the tennis courts.
Any of those be a pickleball? I heard a pickleball court or pickleball court adaptable.
I believe pickleball is not planned on these particular courts.
Yeah, we're looking at the North Park for pickleball. However, depending on when that happens, it's not difficult to use that, but that'll be something we work out as we get in. That's one of the things the Recreation and Park Commission will get to grapple with, but any tennis court can be converted up to 4 pickleball courts.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. There will be lighting at the facilities so that it can be used, in the evening or potentially early morning hours. Yes, so in the tennis complex building, it's going to have restrooms on either side most likely, and the center portion is going to be more of an Office Pro storage facility.
We should also mention that we did have, I think, 3 meetings with the tennis community.
Yes, sorry, I
and
meant to
with USTA as well.
Yeah, we had 3 meetings with the tennis community here in Mountain House, as well as USTA, the United States Tennis Association, to help, determine how the courts were grouped best for regular play as well as for tournaments and events, so that it meets both of their standards.
Yeah, US Tennis Association actually provides free design services that we've taken advantage of.
Thank you for all the initiatives and going through all this presentation. Can we convert any of those courts into like a badminton courts or indoor facility sort of a thing? I know it's been brought up many times because I think accommodating all sort of sports would be like we have to wait otherwise, right? So it would be easier to create some sort of a multi-purpose facilities. I don't know what it would take to make a badminton court out of a tennis court. I know a lot of plans been already made, but I think that would serve a lot of people as well.
Yeah, we'll check into the multi-use opportunities for that. And I don't know if you mentioned that, but this is 2 phases. So there's potential, it would be 6 courts, and then there's room for 3 additional courts. So we may have more flexibility in that second phase for more flexibility as well. That'll, again, be a dialogue in the future.
Yep, thank you. And one more little question, like if a resident comes up with a plan to open an indoor facility, what sort of incentives can CST provide? Like giving some sort of a free land or like, I don't know. Is it, no?
I know there's been a number of questions about, there's some private facilities that people have attempted to open over in the warehouses. And I won't go into long, boring discussion, but when Mountain House was created, there was a requirement that enough buildings were built to create a certain number of jobs. The whole goal was there to be a balance of jobs and housing in Mountain House. And the zoning that's tied into those warehouses have made it clear those are supposed to be more manufacturing and job generating. And so under the county zoning code, a recreation use in those buildings is not allowed at this point in time. Now, once we become a community, if some of those buildings are still sitting empty and not generating jobs, that's a dialogue we could have at that time. But right now, the county some folks went through a lot of work with the county, but right now the county stance is those were meant to be for manufacturing and, medium to high paying jobs, not for recreation.
I have one request, like a lot of people are interested in sports. So a few people are looking for the badminton courts and TT. So why can't you prioritize building the club, recreational club as part of the first phase, at least so that it can accommodate other sports like volleyball, TT and badminton?
I think the challenge is these first three are what, about $12 million, Dave? Whereas the rec center is about twice that cost. So it's about a $25 million question, along with the operating expense is probably 10 times what it would be. So that's something that for future phases, we're going to be talking to the board about, are there ways we can accelerate that? But again, for this first phase, it was something that was financially feasible.
Any more questions on the tennis court?
Everyone feels about those many tennis courts you guys plan. So all these people are requesting that have an indoor facility where they can play these ping pong, volleyball, and badminton. That's the reason this many people come in here. So please take it into consideration and then cut down. I mean, based on the people's requests, I'm saying here. So we need to look into that. So to build an indoor in that space. So no one likes that having that many courts because we already have that. So that's what the sense I can see here. Thank you.
By the way, I made a real mistake at the beginning of the meeting, and I did not introduce my bosses who are in the office, so who are in the building tonight. So I don't know how many of you know your board members, but two of them are here tonight. Our chair, Manuel Moreno is here. And one of our original and still board members, Bernice Tingle, is here as well. One of our original residents of Mountain House and a board member is here as well.
We do have a public question. Is there plans to put any small playground structures near any of the playing fields? It's a great resource for younger siblings whose older siblings are playing sports.
I think we're looking at that over by the multi-use fields. When those, again, that's part of a future plan, but if you look on here, there's room adjacent between the Little League and the multi-sports fields, and then potentially over by the recreation center as well.
Oh, I think you were talking about right here. This
Also, Harry and Director Andy Sue and Harry Dillon are online.
We have 3 board members online as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we have time for one more question, or are we done with the questions?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, I echo with the sentiments that the folks are having in the audience. I know that these are master plans, and they take a lot of time to go through, and it's hard to change the course. But what I feel is, because the current Mountain House plan, those are all green fields. So it's an extension of what's already been built here. extension of the parks, but having that recreational facility, it's a unique project to the Mountain House. So giving that a priority, I think it would make a more sense. And also I'm coming from the next couple of years. It's going to be a challenging market for people trying to buy the houses. So that might be an attraction from a community standpoint. So it's just my 2 cents to the whole discussion, because the interest rates are going to be through the roof, and the Fed is very clear about those. So instead of having an extension, or do you want to have a unique project that's new to the Mountain House community? So it's something to think about. That's all.
Again, that's subject to negotiation, how soon we'll get the poolside. So I know there's a lot of interest in that. There's interest from the board as well, and we'll be discussing that at a future meeting. But what we're trying to focus on tonight are just the immediate projects, but I think this reinforces our instincts that we want to get the rest of this built as soon as possible. So we've got some ideas. We'll be presenting them to the board in the near future.
Okay. I'm going to move on to talk about the dog park next. The dog park facility is going to be located slightly northeast of the existing Central Community Park off of Central. And this little segment of road here is the existing portion of Giotto that connects to Providence Street. The main entry to the facility will be off of that sort of intersection of Providence and Giotto, where there's palm trees at the moment. This facility will be fully fenced. I believe the fence height is about 5 feet. And the primary entrance will have double trap gates to, prevent dogs from escaping when people are entering and exiting. And there'll be a secondary entry at the north side of the park that will connect to the future trail on the Mountain House Creek Park extension here. In the central area, the main patio, or the entry, my apologies, the dog park is split into a small dog park side and a large dog park side with separate entrances. Each side shares in this patio area, shares a large shade structure with bench seating and beneath it. And there's other features in this area, such as hose bib and wash down stations, trash receptacles, pickup stations, leash holders. On each side of the park, there is a concrete walking path around the perimeter. And on this path, there are sets of benches either under shade trees or under shade structures, and those occur on both sides. Also in the center play area on each side, there are some larger specimen trees that have precast concrete seat walls around them that serve as additional shaded seating area, but those seat walls also protect the tree from dog activity. Other trees within the dog park facility are located at the perimeter as well. The surfacing for the center play areas is still being determined by the district, but the different materials that they're looking for are looking at in terms of long-term maintenance durability and costs are bark mulch, suitable for dogs, decomposed granite, and various manufacturers of synthetic turf. I don't believe that real turf is being explored here. Also on the large dog park side, there's this area at the upper side that is going to have some agility equipment, for jumping and training practice. The small dog park is about 1/4 of an acre in size, and the large dog park is a little bit over 3/4 of an acre. Additionally, aside from the trees, shrubs and ground cover are very limited within the facility to reduce maintenance costs. Any planting that will be there is going to be low water use and probably on drip irrigation. Those are the main key features at the dog park. Does anyone have any questions about this facility? I do not believe this facility will have night lights, no. What was the online question?
Yeah, right.
That would be definitely,
Yeah, typically
Will
dog
be
parks are
yeah.
daytime uses. It's hard to get them well lit in the evening. The area, we do have a lot of public lighting along the sidewalks in that area though, through there. Yeah, I can repeat. Yeah, go ahead. and-
Once it starts getting dark super early, the kids don't have anywhere to play because there's no lights in the parks. So pretty much all that goes to waste. Kids can't play basketball, they can't play anything because it gets dark early, and that just doesn't get used. All those parks don't get used anymore.
Right, typically, in most communities, that's why you have community parks versus neighborhood parks. The challenge with the neighborhood parks is, and I've sat through dozens of hours of meetings, that you have to be very selective in the parks that you have lighting. Because if you have lighting, then you have arguments over the hours. And so I know, like, for example, in Cuesta, people would like to be there later, but if we put lights in those parks, every single resident facing that park would be at our meetings every month complaining about the lighting. So it's one of those things you learn in park planning, that's why you have this hierarchy of parks. You have your neighborhood parks, which focus on daytime activities and allow people to have their quiet enjoyment of their homes in the evening. And then that's why we have the 3 large community parks, which will be lit in the evening with sports fields and other activities, just as we do now with the tennis courts and the basketball courts at this point in time. And eventually, the Little League fields and these multi-use fields will be lit as well. So there will be more lit parks than we have now. But I can just tell you that it never works well to have neighborhood parks with lights.
As far as lights on the dog park, it makes sense. It's hard to light a park that's covered in trees and blockage, but what's going to be done to stop kids from going and taking it over at night and things like that if just the shade structure doesn't have light, right? Because it's hot right now. I wouldn't even consider taking my dog out till 10 o'clock at night. But if there was light in the shade structure, I might consider it, because if my dog's in a secure area, I don't really have to worry about where he is in the park or being able to see him as long as he recalls, right? So, but at least I would have light. I would feel safe,
Well,
male or female, under a shade structure with light.
And it's a good point for here, just like we're looking at different types of turf, and we'll do some photometrics to see if we can't get some use in the evening. By the way, one of the reasons we always put the dog parks right up on a street is you want there to be eyes on the park, because it's, from a safety standpoint, it's very important that dog parks are on a relatively busy street. And actually, once Giotto is extended over to the shopping center, Giotto is going to be the main, anybody coming from north of Byron or from Cuesta or Altamont is likely going to be going to the shopping center via Giotto. So it'll be a good, secure area for people being able to keep an eye on that park at most hours of the day. But we'll take a closer look at the photometrics on the park so that we can get some use in the evening. Because certainly days like today remind us, of course, today, even at midnight, it's not going to be cool enough, but most times.
For the whole three or 4 phases of development, are there going to be like satellite posts for security? I know that we have the people who drive through, but are there going to be like posts created?
There'll be cameras. There's more cameras. We don't want to tell you where the cameras are, but
That's
there-
okay. You don't
there-
have to tell me.
There are cameras and there will be additional cameras, and just, I don't know if you've seen the presentations before, but we do have, in fact, artificial intelligence built into the cameras these days as well. So it can distinguish between birds flying around and something a lot bigger than a bird flying around in the park after hours. And one of the main purposes of Rank Security, if you look at their monthly reports, is one of their main areas of work in the evening is enforcing the curfews on the parks as well. But we have license plate readers at every entry in the community, and we're going to be adding them because it doesn't always get them, we're going to have them coming and going so that we can track that better. We're hoping to get Grant Line Road done soon so we can add that one back in. In fact, they're paving out there today on Grant Line Road. It's taking a long time to dry and cool off.
Since there is a question about the security, right? So since we are planning a lot of commercials, a lot of business going to come, and there will be floating population and homeless thing, maybe the problem for the community, right? So what do you anticipate when there are more commercial comes, and how you plan for the security and take care of those kind of things?
We'll take care of it the same way we do now, because we do get issues from time to time, but hopefully that we'll continue to enforce that.
Okay.
But you're right, parks are more of a challenge for those sorts of things. But we have issues at the Byron Road underpass actually more frequently than the parks right now, but the sheriff's office has done a great job with that.
Oh, that's all right. Are we ready for me to move on to the amphitheater? Okay. So the amphitheater facility is going to be located just west of the building we're in, between the town hall and library building and the existing portion, sorry about that, of Central Park off of Main Street. There's going to be access from the existing sidewalk off Main Street, the sidewalks surrounding the town hall and library parking lot, and there will also be a connection to the existing walks within Central Community Park. This facility will also be completely fenced. I believe there's discussion that the fences would the gates would primarily be open unless there's some sort of ticketed event. There's going to be walkways surrounding the whole, inside the fences that are, ramps and accessible walkways, and stairs will be located at some of the steeper portions towards the top of the amphitheater to provide access out and back into Central Community Park. There's going to be stairs in those locations. There's also concrete walks through the middle tiered section to provide access across the facility. The stage is going to be located closest to the driveway entrance to the current Town Hall Library parking lot. The stage is going to be elevated. It's also going to have a solid roof structure, and there's storage buildings on either side of the stage as well. I'm going to actually flip over to we have a second sheet here that has grading on it. I was going to switch to this one to talk about the different types of seating areas. So you can kind of, at the top of this page, this is a section. On this side is the path at the top closest to the existing community park. And this is the stage down here. This first section of seating is a paved concrete patio that allows for folding chair setup. That has a capacity for about 190 seats. The next section here is tiered panels of turf where the concrete walks come through as well, and they have concrete seat walls at the back. That section holds about 500 people. And then the top section is a sloped turf area, and that has sorry, I keep flipping my sheet around the wrong way. The sloped turf area has capacity for about 1,800 people. The total capacity for the amphitheater area is about 2,500, a little bit over 2,500 people in the facility. I'm going to switch back to the colored version. Within this complex, there's a few different areas for vendor and tent setup. One of them is at the top of the amphitheater here, near the stairway that connects to Central Community Park. The other is along the Main Street side within the fences. Additionally, any site amenities in this area are going to be consistent with what's around the Town Hall Library in terms of benches, bike racks, picnic tables. We have a large area with a lot of bike parking adjacent to Main Street. And then adjacent to the sidewalk on the existing Town Hall Library area, there's going to be additional bench seating and picnic table areas. We're going to have staging areas that are in the parking lot and drive aisle for temporary uses related to larger events on this, but these uses shouldn't, while they may block some parking, they won't impede circulation through the parking lot as a whole. There's this area planned for truck staging and unloading in the driveway here, and then around the edge of the parking lot, there's areas that are planned for additional food vendors potentially, or food trucks, and also additional dumpsters as needed during events. The facility will have lighting and security as well. Let me see if I missed anything. Oh, restrooms, yes. So the stairway at the top is going to provide access to the existing restroom building that's in Central Community Park, but there's also an additional new restroom building planned at the top of the parking lot up here. I imagine it will be similar in size to the existing restroom facility, but just an additional one. And lastly, same as the other new facilities, the planting in this area will be low water use, most likely drip irrigation, and meet all of the city water use and state water use requirements.
Should mention that, you know, for large events, we'd have a staging area for porta potties as well, because, you know, for the large, we could never build enough restrooms for the largest events. So we've made sure down along the parking areas there'd be room for additional porta potties as well.
That is exciting. And so is this where the music in the park would be taking place going forward? And so the top area, where I guess it holds the most people, that's not covered or anything, and it's on a slight grade, right? Because I know a lot of people come and they have, you know, shade. I mean, they bring their own tents and things like that because the sun could be kind of intense. So would that doesn't sound like that's really going to accommodate that anymore.
Well, I think, you know, even on the slope, when we've gone to other places, there's still ability, you know, because you have adjustable legs. And we're at the very top of the venue, we're looking to have more room. Have it very flat at the top so that there'd be room for additional tents up at the top as well. That was a concern we had also.
The slope is about 9%, so it's not terrible. It's not super steep. You know, I think it's comfortable sitting, you know, so you can at least get a little elevation over the people that would be in front of you and would provide some flexibility for that. This is planned to be regular grass. Yeah, not synthetic. I don't think there's a plan for this to be synthetic turf.
Will other people be able to rent that out?
Yes.
From other places to generate
well,
money for us?
I mean, yes, I mean, that's one of those things where it will be fenced in. You know, the challenge with amphitheaters when it's a concert, and this is, I've done this other places, you can't really keep people from listening to the concert. So outdoor amphitheaters are very difficult from a renting standpoint, but we will set it up to where it will have the flexibility for people to put on, you know, ticketed events and things of that nature. But the details of that would be a board policy with the work of the Recreation and Parks Commission to talk about those things. It varies from community to community how they do that.
Yes, hi. When I look at your section, the gradient you say is 9 degrees, but that span is very wide for you to have just one slope. Wouldn't it be better for you to have that large section divided in maybe 2 parts? And no, like a little wide, then a step, and then
More stepped.
yeah, instead of just on 1 degree, because by the time you get to the lower level, it won't be safe. And if you have slippery shoes and you're suggesting that it's grass, and then maybe it's rainy or people have really stepped on it a lot, there might be issues. So yeah, so I think it would be better to section it into areas, 9 degree a step, and then the 9 degree. Yeah.
Starting at that concrete band, those are all flat terraces, but we could, when we get into the grading details during construction, we could look at
You can see it
providing a
there on the
bench
s-
in
it's
the
on
middle.
It's on the screen right now at the very top. You
It's
can
sort of
see
hard
the
to
slope.
see because it's so
Yeah.
small. So this is the flat area at the very top. Here's the gentle slope down. This whole section right here is terraced. And then this is and each terrace is flat, and then this is flat as well at the bottom. But this area is where you're talking about, right? Yeah. We could look at adding a bench in here, but that would potentially increase the slope on the two
That's-
sloped
That's the
portions.
problem. The trade-off is the more flat, the more steep you have in other areas, so. Right,
Like adding an additional terrace potentially there. We-
right.
That's something that,
I think that's something we have been talking about at the very top, you know.
yeah,
Right.
that's definitely something we can look into.
So what percentage of the total, 2,700 seating is being built for accommodations for ADA, and where is that located within the design?
That would primarily be in the lower two portions that are terraced and flat and have concrete walks. So in this, it's a little easier to see on the colored slide, but in the terrace section, there's 3 rows that have concrete paving, and so those would be all accessible. And there's seat walls at the back of these as well, and these are wide enough that you could sit on those seat walls and still have access across. I think that's something that could be designated with some sort of signage potentially.
Yeah, when we have the building inspectors are going to require that. That's just part of, as we go through plan check and construction, all that gets incorporated by the building department.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, have you considered, is this like skateboard proof? Because I know there's a demand for a skate park. If the gates are open all the time and there's ramps and there's stairs and things, I could see this being damaged. Have you thought about that at all?
We have typically when we do these types of things, there are the little bumps we put in to stop the skateboards, so.
Yeah, I imagine that's something that would be incorporated on the seat walls, similar to a lot of the walls at the neighborhood entries.
Right.
And I think there's ways, there's different things that can be done to the handrails or different way those specifications can be made to make it a little more vandal proof.
Typically, you have a first cut, then when they figure that out, you have a second cut that you often have to. When I built some parks in Stockton, that's what we had to do. It's kind of a cat and mouse till you found the right combination for those things.
Any more questions?
I don't know the size of, the area where the concerts or performances happen, but see, think about this. So this is windy city and then heat, in summer, chill or, in winter, right? So, that much big we're building. So we should think about having a big gazebo where people can, in certain concerts where when it is sunny or, I think wintertime anyway, we don't use in summertime, we should think about having a gazebo, shaded gazebo where you can accommodate 1,000+ people. That's really going to help. Or otherwise we have to propose it into the Central Park right now. That's what is I was thinking about it a long time. So this is an opportunity to modify that to have a shade really, because that's not going to work. Like example, last 1 month we're having a lot of heat. So having that much big amphitheater, where are we going to sit?
Well, this summer, when I've been out at the concerts, one of the things I've done is to look to see, because that's sloped and there's 30 and 40 foot tall trees behind there right now, Actually, even at peak summertime, by 8 o'clock, that entire area is in the shade. And it's more like 7 o'clock at other times of year. But we also have the ability to do, I'm assuming we'll have temporary shade structures at the stage, but nothing, we don't want to do anything permanent because that adds millions of dollars to the cost.
Gazebo, I don't think it's going to be $1 million for gazebo, but I would say that it's just.
Probably a couple $1 million
Yeah.
for what you're talking about, but
I'll send you the picture actually I took from Sunnyvale. We used to do a lot of events over there. I'll send the picture actually. I'm going to advertise it, but at the same time, please think about that. It should be a multi-purpose as well. Otherwise, it's going to be waste over there, that much space.
Are the sides all, is it all fenced in? Okay. Next question. If it's all fenced in, how many exits are there? Emergency? Because if you have so many people, in case of an emergency, how many exits do we have?
There's 4 exits onto the Main Street side. There's 1 at the top, and then I believe we also have 4 or 5 on to the parking lot side.
yeah, it'll meet code.
About, just generally speaking, for all the different, somebody had mentioned something about skateboarding. Was there ever discussion of a skate park for all these young people here?
Yes, it's in the future phase over there. Yeah, over.
Aha, okay,
Yes.
thank you. I missed that.
If there's ever a police station, it was going to be right next to the police station, so.
Any more questions on the amphitheater specifically before we go back to general comments?
Okay, we are the board of directors from Mountainous Cricket Club. There have been a lot of questions and concerns with respect to cricket, but I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Steve because over the past 2 or 3 months, we have been constantly meeting and discussing over the cricket issues. And because of that, insights over into the meetings that we have put in, we have spent like more than 10 hours, I guess, over the last 2 to 3 months. And because of that, we have, I mean, Steve and other guys on the board have like thought about cricket as a sport and trying to put the cricketing structures wherever possible. So I appreciate all the efforts that you guys are putting in. Not that I'm not sure many of them might not be aware of what you have been trying to put efforts on cricket, but I would like all the members on the forum to know that yes, CSD board has been putting a lot of efforts to bring up cricket as a facilities in Mountainous. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Thank the board. We can't do anything without the board's permission on these things.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, so most of the people may not be knowing how much hard work has to go behind that, right? So already groundwork started and working hard. And thanks for all that, but all people expect is like how fast we can do, right? When we say 2025 or 2027, it's kind of little far, right? That maybe if they try to make a convey to the concerns and like, but we know that we are working together for long and we know all the effort what's going on. So thanks for all the work, hard work, and hope we work together to make it soon. Thank you.
And I haven't forgotten that you promised us some lifeguards for next summer too, right?
Thank you. So thank you for just the presentation on phase 2 and also all the general updates to the community. Question about phase 3 and kind of beyond, because you did say that they were kind of negotiable. Is there any consideration for additional basketball courts at Central Park? Because I believe right now we only have 1 and we have 3 tennis courts, I believe, and with the addition of 9. Will there also be any plans for additional basketball courts, which is, I think, in high demand in this community, similar to cricket? We have a lot of basketball players.
Yeah, we were looking at that over by the skateboard area. There's room over, it looks like over adjacent to the multi-use fields there in the northeast corner is where we're looking. That way it's spread out from the other one. And again, we want it in more of a high visibility area, so it makes sense over there. Yes, and I can tell you firsthand that till midnight, those courts are very busy. no matter how windy it is. We'll wrap. Oh, one more.
Oh, sorry. Pardon me.
I know you've done a survey and I did respond to the survey, but if we're making suggestions for future, negotiable things, I know that the skate park is in demand. I prefer a bike park because it's more inclusive to all ages. And there's lots, like Pleasanton has a great bike park. It's pretty low maintenance. You can get 2-year-olds out there all the way to 50-year-olds, whoever rides a bike. And it's dirt basically, so it's pretty easy to maintain. It's not that pretty, but super fun and probably fewer injuries potentially. So anyway, just something else to put.
That's good food for thought. And, we were thinking about something like that adjacent to all the bike paths that are going in right now.
Since we're adding stuff, can we have a roller skating rink? We could do that outdoors on the I skate. So skate park, roller skates, bicycle, basketball, every sport, roller skating.
Hi, Steve. This is the first time I'm coming for a town hall meeting, and I really appreciate the hard work that has gone behind this by the board and the management and providing the sports facilities. Today, I came here to represent the Mountain House badminton community and the Mountain House table tennis community. It's really happy to see that you've considered those sports in your sports planning as well. But one thing I would request you to do is normally the sports like badminton and table tennis are treated like a multi-purpose sports where you build a multi-purpose facility and then repurpose that for badminton, table tennis, basketball, and all the other sports. And that is good for recreational, but when you go to a professional level, that's not going to work because badminton courts need a special infrastructure because the flooring is different, the height is different, height is 24 feet. And I'm really happy that you guys took the International Association recommendations for the badminton and hope you do the same thing. For the tennis courts, you did consult the International Association, Tennis Association. And I would assume that you would go the same route for the badminton and table tennis also. One thing, I have a request for you from the communities, a written request just in case, right? And then I'm specifically interested in badminton and table tennis because the flooring requirements are same for them and the facilities could be repurposed for that. So please include us in the discussions and probably we can plan a better facility. Thank you.
Given the annexes and the short-term plan of handovers from the county, couldn't that be kind of negotiated for activities like table tennis, if and when?
We'll have to check on the ceiling heights when it gets completed, whether it's practical or not.
What do you see done and completed by the end of 2023?
Nothing at the end of well, it really depends on how quickly contractors can get things done this next year. As you know, even the homes in town are taking twice as long right now as they did a year ago. So as the developer mentioned, our goal and their goal is to be under construction by May 1st. That's how long it's going to take us to do all the plans and specs, go out to bid, negotiate with the contractor, make sure the weather is ready. So we really won't know until next spring when the contractors are available. Sometimes what we're finding on certain projects right now is if we're trying to build at the same time everybody else is trying to build, it becomes problematic. Just something simple with the mailboxes we're doing in Wickland. If we had said those had to be done in August instead of November, the price would have doubled. So we're trying to make the best use of your taxpayer dollar and get the projects completed as quickly as possible. So we're trying to be realistic in today's environment. and say that these three projects should be ready in the spring of 2024. That's why we're
All three projects by 2024?
right. So the tennis, the amphitheater, and the dog park, spring of 2024. And then my hope is we should hopefully get one cricket pitch in South Community Park within that time frame as well. And hopefully Costa School cricket pitch will be done in that time frame as well. And we are hoping that we can start, again, we've got to work with the board and work with MHD to see if we can't start some of the discussions on these future phases sooner than later. But the focus tonight is let's get these done, let's get these designed, and let's get the bulldozers up there next spring. But in the meantime, we do want to multitask and start working on the next phases as well. But to make 2024, we have to start today.
I see. Now you have the budget, you have the money already, or part of the money and all that. I see it.
The simple answer is yes.
Good.
For these projects, the developer is willing to front the money because we do have, with all the development the last couple of years, there's a reasonable amount of fee dollars available. For these larger projects, we have more, we have more math classes we have to work through to speed up the rest of these projects. But if the economy cannot go completely off rails, I think we can get these other things done sooner. But they were talking about interest rates, and when interest rates are high, well, the problem is when interest rates are high, that impacts us as well. So we're trying to work through that. Luckily, when we did, the board authorized a couple debt financings the last 2 years at all-time record lows. So that gives us a little more flexibility.
Thank you. As board president, I wanted to, on behalf of Director Tingle, I know Vice President Dillon and Director Sue are both on the Zoom call. I want to thank all the residents that have shown up today. It's a great conversation, and I hope it's the start of many that we will continue to have. We are here to serve you. We want to continue the dialogue. We meet here in this room the second Wednesday of every month at 7 o'clock. Please join the meetings. Usually it's 2 or 3 of us in this room or 2 or 3 residents in the room. We go through our business, not a lot of dialogue. It's unfortunate. We are a growing community. We need the involvement. We have, as Steve mentioned earlier, we have the Park and Recreation Commission, which we're starting. The information for the application process is online. I would encourage you to sign up, join, have your voice heard. Everything that we talked about today, and as we move this forward, that committee or commission is going to have a huge part in what we do, the decisions that are made, and how we really move this community forward from a Park and Recreation Commission perspective. So if you want your voice heard, you want to have a part in the action that's taken, join the commission, attend our meetings, reach out to me, Director Tingle, Vice President Dillon, Director Sue, Director Lucid. Our email addresses are all online. We are here to serve you. That's our job. That's what you've put us in the positions that we are in to do. Please utilize us. We work closely with our staff. If you have an issue, that's what we're here for. Let us help you and let us move this community forward. Thank you all again for attending tonight. I really appreciate the time and again, the great dialogue that we've had.